I was excited for the 14-inch, so I thought for sure that this was going to be it. This was going to be my computer of choice. And then about 2 days later, I had a realization. What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't seen my latest video, I just posted a brand new home office tour. You can check it out right here, and if you've already watched it, thank you so much for the support. I just wanted to make a quick video today about the MacBook Pro. Recently, I posted a video, kind of a review on the 16-inch base model MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro CPU in it. At the end of this video, I said I was going to return it and I was going to get the 14-inch M1 Max with 32 gigs of RAM, something like that. And then since then, a lot's changed. If you follow me on Instagram, I picked up the 14-inch and started posting photos with the 14-inch, and then all of a sudden, a couple days later, the computer got bigger and I was posting photos of the 16-inch, and a lot of people were confused by it. They're like, I thought you got the 14-inch, but this computer is definitely a 16-inch. And the reason for this is I bought the 14-inch, I ended up returning it 2 days later and went back to the 16-inch. And I'll get into this a little bit and kind of why I decided to go back to the bigger laptop after I said that I thought it was gonna be a better fit for me. But one of the bigger things about this was I didn't just go with the 16-inch. I never ended up going with the M1 Max or any of the beefed up specs. I just got the in-store model. Now again, this video is not a review. I'm not going to get too in-depth with everything. I just want to talk about why I decided to stay with this after talking about saying I was going to go with the beefier model. After I returned the original 16-inch MacBook Pro, I was trying to decide which specs were going to be the best for me, which computer was going to work best for my video editing, whether I'm at home or on the road, traveling for work, and I thought that the 14-inch was going to be perfect for this. After doing a ton of different research and checking out different benchmark videos and seeing which scenarios these two different CPUs handle best in, I realized that upgrading to the M1 Max would be amazing. It would be super fast, but it wouldn't necessarily be a necessity for me. If I went with the M1 Pro, I wasn't going to be wishing I bought the M1 Max because the M1 Pro is slow. In the time that I had the original M1 Pro, I had it for like 3 weeks before I ended up returning it. All of the projects that I was running through it handled perfect for me. I never had any issues with it boggling down. I handled a wide array of different editing projects, whether it was a YouTube video or some of my commercial work, and I never once ran into issues of it slowing down or not being able to handle what I was throwing at it. Of course, if I were to have more RAM in it, or if I had the M1 Max, there would be different things that it would benefit from, but when it came down to deciding which computer I was going to go with and actually keep, I realized that having an M1 Pro with 16 gigs of RAM was gonna be perfect for what I needed it for. Now again, the main reason I have this laptop is for my mobile work and kind of my secondary editing stuff. So what I mean by that is my main system is my custom PC. This is beefed up and ready to handle any project I throw at it. This is where I handle most of my commercial work, or if I'm coloring a project and I need DaVinci Resolve and I need a crazy GPU and 64 gigs of RAM and like all of the crazy specs within that, the PC can handle that. And of course, I do some of those projects on here, and it's able to handle that as well, but I'm not relying solely on this one machine to handle everything. So that's kind of what it came down to when I decided not to go with all of the beefed up specs. So once I decided on going with the in-store model, the benefit to that is I could literally just pick it up in store. So I found the 14-inch in stock at the Apple Store. I went and picked it up that same day, and there it was. I had it, and it was great. I was excited for the 14-inch. I was excited for the size of it, which really is a great size. It's very portable, and it's much lighter than the 16-inch. So I thought for sure that this was going to be it. This was going to be my computer of choice. And then about 2 days later, I had a realization. I pulled my MacBook Pro off of the dock where I had it set up to my external monitor, and I wanted to just edit with it on my lap, watching TV, sitting on the couch, and that's when I realized that the trackpad is much smaller than the 16-inch. Now you're thinking that's probably a very stupid reason to just return it to get a 16-inch, but this was just kind of the start of the thought process. Like, this little thing kind of started making me think about little other things that I hadn't really thought about before. So the point of this laptop is to be a mobile computer for me, meaning I'm not always going to have this thing connected to an external monitor, or I'm not going to have a mouse and keyboard connected to it. About 80%, I would say, of the time that I'm using this is because I'm either not at home, or I'm sitting on the couch, or I'm using it as a laptop. So I'm using this trackpad, I'm using the keyboard, I'm using the screen that's on this laptop most of the time. When I was editing with the trackpad, now it wasn't terrible, it's still a great trackpad. I still stand by the fact that Apple has the best trackpads, but it being a little smaller than I was used to, I noticed things just weren't flowing as easy for me when I was editing. If you edit videos or you do any consistent work on a computer, you know that you kind of have these involuntary motions that you don't really think about. So when I'm editing on a laptop, my hands are kind of placed in a certain way that I'm not necessarily thinking about. It just works for me because I'm used to it. When I was editing on the 14-inch with a smaller trackpad, I noticed my hands were like a little more cramped than normal, and my fingers were kind of like, I'm not gonna say tangled because that's incredibly over exaggerating, but they were just bumping into each other in a way that I wasn't really expecting to because I'm used to a larger trackpad. My 15-inch 2017 MacBook Pro has a larger trackpad than the 14, so I'm used to a larger trackpad. And then moving to the 16-inch, I believe they're about the same. This one might be a little bit bigger, but there's definitely a size discrepancy from the 16-inch to the 14-inch. So right there, I realized, okay, this laptop might be a little bit smaller than I would like it to be. So after this, it got me thinking, maybe I made the wrong decision and I should have stuck with the 16-inch. As far as comfortability of using it, I definitely missed having a larger screen and having that larger trackpad and just the feeling overall of having the 16-inch. And again, I'm not saying that the 14-inch completely sucked. It wasn't a terrible user experience. I did enjoy it, but as I was thinking more and more, I started realizing what I was actually going to be using this computer for and realizing how much I would be relying on the actual laptop functions themselves and not throwing in external things for it. Aside from the trackpad obviously being a little bit smaller, also the battery is a little bit smaller in the 14-inch. The 14-inch and the 16-inch both have incredible battery life, but there was a noticeable difference between the 16-inch and then going back to the 14-inch when I was editing. There was just a little bit of a shorter lifespan that I had to plug the computer in to continue editing. And this isn't really a big issue if you're going to be working from home a lot or working from a single station, but I'm always traveling, I'm always in an airport, I'm on an airplane, and I want to get work done, and there's not always a power outlet to plug into or anything that's close and convenient, so having that extra battery life I just saw as another added benefit for me. And then of course the larger screen, since I'm going to be using the actual screen on this 80% or more of the time that I use it, just having that extra screen real estate is going to be nice whenever I'm editing projects on the road and I'm not able to plug it into a larger external monitor. So after making yet another pros and cons list of what I needed in a laptop, I decided I was going to pick up the 16-inch because there was one in stock at the Apple Store and return the 14-inch. But before I returned the 14-inch, I wanted to just make sure before I did anything else impulsive that it was going to be the right move. So I kind of placed them next to each other, used them side by side. I used the 16-inch one night, I used the 14-inch another night, and I just felt myself using the 16-inch more, and immediately I was happy with my decision to get the 16-inch. So that's when I returned the 14-inch and decided on keeping this. And of course, again, I could have gone with the M1 Max and beefed it out a little bit more, but I haven't had any performance issues with this, especially for what I use it for. And what I was realizing within this whole purchase thing was that I could have gotten caught up with the specs and just wanting to beef it up as much as I could so that I didn't have to worry about it. But then I realized that if I were to get a computer that was going to handle what I needed and also free up some money to put into other aspects of the business, that would be more beneficial to me long term, because I do have other systems that I'm working with and this isn't what I'm solely relying on for my business. And of course, if this is your sole computer, maybe it does make more sense to go with the M1 Max. And I've told people who have asked me which one they should go for, if this is your only computer setup and you're doing your entire editing workflow on this, you're handling your entire business on one computer, splurge a little bit, spend that extra money to really beef it up and make sure that you're not going to have any issues. So a month later using this computer, I'm still happy with my decision to stick with the M1 Pro, 16 gigs of RAM and the 1 terabyte SSD. I think 1 terabyte is a perfect size internally for a computer, and again in my last video I talked about how all of my projects always live externally, so having 2, 3, 4 terabytes more of SSD space isn't necessarily going to be as beneficial to me, because regardless of most of the projects I work on, everything is pretty much living externally. So the 1 terabyte is perfect for me. I was able to have not only all of my software on there, but I'm also able to move smaller projects onto it, work from there, and then move it off if I want to, especially for YouTube videos that are under 200 gigs. The SSD is incredibly fast, and so I've noticed some really nice performance benefits by editing directly from that internal SSD. So I think that 1 terabyte was kind of a good move, and having a 512 gig would have definitely been too small for me. Aside from that, I haven't had any performance issues with just having the M1 Pro. Again, any M1 chip that you have right now is going to be leaps and bounds better than previous generations before. All of the Intel chips So if you're still trying to decide on which computer to go with and you don't know if you should spend that extra money on the M1 Max or you want to save a little bit on the M1 Pro, if it comes down to budget and you want to put that money into other parts of your business, you're still going to be happy with the M1 Pro. It's impossible to buy the wrong spec'd MacBook Pro with their new chips that they have. Everyone I've talked to who have picked up the M1 Pro, just the in-store model, they picked it up at Best Buy or the Apple Store, they've been incredibly happy with the performance and they haven't had any issues with it struggling with anything they use it for. That's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to make something quick to talk about kind of the experience I had with the 14 and the 16 inch. So if anyone is still trying to decide between the two, maybe this video will help. If you enjoyed this video and it did help you out with your decision making, be sure to give it a like, hit me up in the comments and say hello, and if you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to try and post more tech type videos coming up, and I would love to have you all along for that, but I'm going to start editing this video, so I'll see you all in the next one.